Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for our MSL Learn webinar series. We're excited to have with us Keiley McGregor, the MSC trainer, is going to talk more with us this morning about partners, sharing groups, collections, processes, possibilities. I'm Keiley Bartow, the CE coordinator for the State Library, and I'm going to let you know that this is a really timely topic for today. We had a meeting of our Network Advisory Council yesterday, and there was a lot of discussion about resource sharing and the importance of looking to our partners, looking to our neighbors, and looking at the potential for not just cost savings, but ultimately increased access to services for our community members. So with that brief introduction, I want to say welcome to everyone. And Keiley, thanks so much for joining us today, and take it away.
Thanks, Keiley. As Keiley just said, welcome to today's MSL Learn webinar on sharing groups in the Montana Shared Catalog, specifically the Partners Sharing Group. My name is Keiley McGregor, and I'm the Montana Shared Catalog trainer. And as you know, we've also got Keiley Bartow on board to help with any questions, and she is also monitoring the chat. So please feel free to type your questions or greetings there. Today I'll be covering which sharing groups exist in the MSC currently and what their role is. I'll then take a closer look at the partner sharing group specifically, including its scope and circulation statistics, how to join partners if you're not a member already, and the expectations for both members and the MSC staff here at MSL. All right, sharing groups within the MSC. There are 3 sharing groups within the MSC. The largest group, called the MSC Partners Resource Sharing Group, Partners for short, was formed in 2004 and includes over 35 member libraries and their branches located throughout the state. The 2 other sharing groups are Four Rivers with 10 members and the Gallatin County Libraries, also known as BridgerNet, with 5 members who share patrons within their geographical regions. For example, I live in Belgrade and am a member of the Belgrade Community Library. So I am very fortunate to have access to all the Gallatin County libraries. If you would like more information about each sharing group beyond what I'm covering today, including which libraries are members, maps of those sharing groups, and their standard operating procedures and so on, you can find those in our article titled MSC Resource Sharing Groups, which will be linked in the slides. All libraries within the MSC consortium share the Symphony Integrated Library System, also known as an ILS, as well as the bibliographic records that system contains, and access to system support and training. The sharing group libraries within the MSC have agreed to take down walls and share collections for the benefit of their patrons, which is why you may also see them referred to as resource sharing groups, not just sharing groups. A patron whose library participates in a sharing group can place holds on items owned by other libraries in their group. Using a combination of mail and courier service, the item is delivered to the patron's home library or another library within the sharing group of their choice. They can then pick up that item. So on the left in this slide, it shows what members of the Montana Shared Catalog share by default once they join. And then on the right is the additional piece that sharing groups within the consortium share. So to dive into that a little bit deeper, If a patron's library is a member of a sharing group, as I just said, they can place holds on titles that exist anywhere within the sharing group and have it delivered to their local library or another library of their choice, as long as it's in the same group. And the sharing group's entire collection can be searched from the online public catalog, and patrons can use their library card at any participating library. So it's not only through holds that they can engage in the benefits of their sharing group. The costs of joining a sharing group involve participating in the courier, which involves staff time, shipping, and materials. However, there's no additional cost as an MSC member to join a sharing group. They are voluntary and not required. The courier service is funded in part through the participating library fees and in part with federal LSTA funding from the Institute of Museum and Library Services, which is administered by the Montana State Library. The savings you get are a reduction in interlibrary loan costs, which can be significant, and patrons having access to way more materials than their local libraries could provide on their own. Sharing groups are configured in part using a holds matrix that tells the system which item anywhere in the state should fill a hold based on both the item's availability and geographic proximity. And this is meant to reduce hold wait times. So let's get a better idea of the partners sharing group specifically. Namely, let's look at its scope. How big is it? What are the statistics? As you can see, partners libraries span the state and a variety of communities. And this is an example of one of the sharing group maps that I mentioned earlier. In the lower right-hand side, I know it may be small, but we have the library names listed according to their numbers and where they are in the state. You may be watching this and realize that your library is a member of Partners and you didn't realize it. Partners is also the only sharing group that is accepting new members actively. So that's partly why we want to highlight it today. So partner statistics speak for themselves. These are just a couple that I grabbed to show you. There are over 900,000 items in partners as of the beginning of 2024. That's a lot. So all those libraries, this is the summation of all of their collections together. Secondly, over 265,300 items have been shared in partners so far this fiscal year, so fiscal year 24. Pretty impressive, but let's take a closer look at the numbers, specifically the circulation numbers in partners. This is a screenshot of the Montana Shared Catalog statistical dashboard, specifically the sharing group tab that's available on the Montana State Library's website. And I'll show you how to get there in a moment. I just want to note that before we go there, the things you'll want to look out for in the top left corner, we have the fiscal year sharing group activity, which is where I pulled the items shared in partners. You can also see those numbers for Four Rivers and the Gallatin County Libraries. We can also, on the right, look at where items are going from an origin library on the top, so where libraries are leaving and going to, and then the transit destination, specifically where they're going to from the library you've selected. They often look pretty similar, but not always. And the neat thing is on the left, to the left of those maps, you can specifically see, okay, I've wanted to look at the statistics for GFPL, which stands for the Great Falls Public Library. They joined partners relatively recently and opted to become an important hub within the sharing group. So they handle a lot of the transit and processing and things. So we can see that items that started or are owned by the Great Falls Public Library, um, where they're going, how many items are going there, um, as well as where items are coming from to fill holds in the Great Falls Public Library. So it's pretty interesting. For example, it looks like Great Falls Public Library ended up lending the Alberton branch almost 120 items so far. And they've also had 63 items from the Alberton branch library come to them to fill holds for their patrons, which is pretty cool. So now I'm going to take a break from the slideshow briefly to show you how to get to see these statistics for yourself. One moment. Cole, can you see the program dashboards page?
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent. And actually, I'm going to go back just to the State Library's main page. To get here, the statistical dashboards, we have several here at the State Library. You're going to want to go to About the Library and choose Publications here on the right. If you scroll down a bit, you'll see in this left block about the library, the MSL program dashboards. And you can also see we have the breadcrumbs of how I got there up here at the top. So we are looking at the shared catalog, which is one of the select programs at the State Library. And I know there are a lot of dashboards. We have a lot of cool programs happening. But if you scroll down near the bottom, we have the Montana Shared Catalog. Now it defaults to this membership page. This just shows the members of the Shared Catalog Consortium overall. But if we go up to this Sharing Groups tab and click it, it'll take you to a page similar to the one that I have screenshotted. Now, you'll see this was last updated. It's updated roughly monthly. So this is as of the beginning of February this year. And what it defaults to is the Missoula's library, their main branch, because they are a significant hub for partners. So here, if you scroll over things, you can see that items that originated in Missoula were and went to Great Falls Public Library number over 7,000 items thus far. And in turn, we have over 11,000 items thus far going to Missoula for their patrons from the Great Falls Public Library. Now you can change these views to whichever library you'd like to view. Just note that it lists all libraries in the consortium and not just the partners sharing group. So you'll need to make sure you're selecting a partner's library if you want to view one of them. So for example, if I change both of these to Livingston, you'll see how the map changes. And again, you can hover over things to see where the number of items going to and from Livingston and where they're located throughout the state. Pretty fun, rather impressive. And if you would rather see a list as opposed to the map visual, just know that on the left-hand side here, that same information is listed. Excellent. So now I am going to go back to my screenshot. Do you see the screenshot, Keiley?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. So that was a very brief dive into partner statistics, but you can see that the circulation stats are significant. Um, this is a huge benefit for patrons in terms of having access to these collections and the means of having them delivered to their local libraries. So maybe you're not already a partners member and you want to know more about what that looks like and possibly how to join. So first things first, you need to be a member of the Montana Shared Catalog to join an MSC sharing group, which is fairly straightforward. And to get into the nitty gritty on partners' bylaws, their policies and procedures, and how to join, I've linked a couple articles from this slide. But one of the most important things to know about being a partners member is that what they value most is a spirit of sharing and collaborating for the benefit of patrons across Montana, not just the patrons at their local libraries, although that is also a number one value too. The nuts and bolts, as it were, once you're a member, you need to attend bi-monthly meetings of partners, and these can occur virtually or in person. In person, maybe if there is a conference that the majority of members can attend, but generally we've been doing these meetings virtually, and so you don't necessarily need to worry about travel. And they do try to keep the meetings to an hour, so don't stress too much about that. At those meetings, we review minutes from past meetings and also discuss topics that people have brought to the um, the the leader of the meetings to put on the agenda. And this is often where the system administration and training team here at the state library can hop on and discuss potential solutions to problems or give partners members updates on projects we've been working on or cleanup projects for partners that we've been doing. It's also a place to celebrate successes and just have time to chat a bit with your fellow partners members. Um, Finally, an important piece is following the policies and procedures that have been outlined for the partners sharing group. That includes circulation policies, patron policies. Remember, patrons can use their card at any partner's library, as well as how to handle certain issues that may arise in terms of replacing shipping crates or communicating that you need more crates, or maybe discussions you've had with staff of the courier, things like that. Finally, as a subset to that, I want to highlight what the MSC team that work for the state library can do to support you as a partners member or an aspiring partners member so that you can rest easy. And that is handle configuration for sharing group membership. The partners sharing group, to be a member, you need to agree to certain circulation rules so that every member is following the same circulation rules. Also, configuring the holds matrix to make sure that items are equitably dispersed throughout the sharing group when it comes to filling holds. While this process isn't always perfect, it is something that's always under review by the system administrators because our goal is to lower hold wait times and have patron satisfaction. If you're a new member of partners, our team will help facilitate an initial training, and usually that involves other current partners library staff coming to your location or meeting to walk your staff through the day to day of filling the holds and putting them in the correct crates, labeling, all of that stuff. While our support team loves to facilitate that, we also know that the members of the sharing group are the ones who know how everything works and on the ground. So we do our best to match up a new member with members that their libraries may be of a similar size or things like that. So we want to set you up for success. Finally, when it comes to resolving problems or other issues, and that means items that may have gone missing or have been lost by patrons. Maybe your patron has lost or damaged an item, but it doesn't belong to you, it belongs to another library. We have procedures for that, as well as how to handle items that have been in transit over a certain amount of time, meaning it's taking a long time to get that item to fill a hold somewhere else across the state. And so what we do is we set up reports in our Blue Cloud Analytics tool to help you be able to check those problem items regularly so that you can resolve them quickly. That is a very brief overview of sharing groups in the Montana Shared Catalog and the Partner Sharing Group specifically. Are there any questions, Colette?
Thanks, Kylie. No, there haven't been any questions in the chat, but I do want to invite those of you who have joined us today, if you have questions, this is a perfect time to lob those in. Feel free to unmute yourself and we'll try to answer your question as succinctly and as accurately as possible. Cindy is asking, I'd like to learn more about missing, lost, long in transit. How can you do that?
Excellent. And Cindy, is your library a member of Partners already?
Yes, she says.
Excellent. We have the list of Partners policies and procedures currently available in our online help desk, and the link is in these slides. However, I can pull that up now. Give me one moment here. I know I have the dashboard up now, but one second. I'm going to our knowledge base. I generally search by browsing, so don't worry about how I'm doing this. I just know that here's where the partner sharing group policies and procedures are. So when I click on that, I have a table of contents that I can also click on. Part 5, I think what you're going to want to look for is problem solving. So I'm going to share this with Colette really quickly, and she can share it in the chat if she would like. Or you can open a ticket and we will send it to you. But basically it talks about what to do when items are missing or lost. And if you're not sure where to find those reports in Blue Cloud Analytics, we can help you do that as well. So I'm just going to go back to my question slide.
Kylie, is there a ticketing system that people should use when they, don't find necessarily an answer in the knowledge base?
Yes, I will also pull that up. Thank you, Colette. I'm going to go back. let's see. And I will share this as well. This is where you can open a ticket and we can either help you find an item or information that you're looking for that may already be in the knowledge base, or if you haven't been able to find it or just have general questions or concerns, please just open a ticket with us. What will happen if I click submit a ticket down here is you'll be prompted to choose basically a program of the state library. Ours is the second one over for the shared catalog. So you would just submit the ticket there and let us know. However, if I go back to this home area, if you search for partners, what'll come up is, um, well, it had ours, the partner sharing group policies and procedures should show up. Or you can just hit enter. There we go. And here you go. These will be the results. So, and it talks more about the circ rules, handling holds, all that stuff.
That is very helpful. So I have a question for you and maybe some of our participants. So this idea of partners and sharing groups, it's not necessarily new.
No.
And you know, as you mentioned, there's some of the sharing groups that have really been in place since before the shared catalog really became the shared catalog. So the
Mhm.
question is, what has this meant to you? So either Kylie or some of our participants who are part of those sharing groups. What do your patrons say? What's your experience? If you want to share that in chat or if you'd like to unmute, I think that would be something that might be helpful for people who are viewing the recording later on, to understand why this is important.
Certainly. I would love to hear from others, the folks who are actually working at these libraries that are also members of sharing groups, because you're doing the bulk of the work. One thing I will say until or unless we hear from someone else is, as a state library staff person, being able to attend the sharing group meetings, including partners, it's been pretty phenomenal to listen and watch as a group of people work together towards trying to provide the best service for their patrons. And that doesn't mean there aren't bumps along the way, but having that spirit of collaborating and working together uh, definitely shines through. And I think we've been able to, compromise on some things and also see other points of view in a professional, respectful environment. And it has been incredibly impressive. Like I said, we have a lot of libraries across the state all working together, and it's been definitely inspiring for me.
That's awesome. So I have a couple of comments. Great Falls Public Library patrons were not initially excited based on some collections we had to get rid of, but
Mhm.
they don't hear many issues now. So kind of that initial, like, is what's this going to mean for us? Once things get rolling, then those are kind of resolved.
Definitely.
And then Cindy says our patrons love partners. Our small library can act almost like a branch of the partners sharing group, which is really
Mhm.
great to hear that. Cindy's in Plains, and for our libraries that do combine, we just see those great results for patrons who get the stuff that they want and need.
Certainly. And in some ways, patrons may not realize that their library is in a sharing group. They just assume that this is how libraries work or how they've always worked. And we certainly love being able to streamline that process. So kudos to all of you whose libraries participate. It's Definitely going to experience growing pains if you choose to join partners, but overall, the amount of staff time or kind of initial uh, drinking by the fire hose of information and processing all the holds and things like that sort of evens out, and then you get to see the impact you're having on your patrons and patrons across the state. So
That's awesome, Kylie. We're kind of at the end of our time, and so I think
excellent.
that comment was really a great way to tie things up. If you wouldn't mind advancing the slides, we
Mhm.
have all kinds of information and news sources. Links will be posted with this event. If you'd like to move to the next thing. Um, you can watch the recording in the YouTube channel, and that will be available to you a little bit later today. I put a link in the chat. We post a PDF of all of the slides, and that will include all of the links that we shared in the chat. So you can track back to those or share those with your colleagues. But do go back to the YouTube channel or Aspen to today's event, and you'll find those resources for you there. Next slide, please. We have our evaluation survey. We always appreciate hearing from you on how we did today. So the link is in the chat, or you can snap the QR code and that will take you to our evaluation form. Our funders, the Institute of Museum and Library Services, love to have your comments as part of how we report on the work that we're doing. And if you go to the next slide, we have so much coming up in the next couple of weeks leading up to the MLA conference in April, March 19th. Kylie is returning or no, sorry, that's Kara Orban is going to be talking about how to update information about your library in WorldCat. We have a rescheduled website chat for March 20th. There's going to be a great 1 hour session on the 22nd about libraries and the legislature. And then following up into April, and I didn't put MLA as a event here, but hope to see many of you there. We'll be sharing information about the sessions that the State Library is hosting as part of that conference, including the MSC membership meeting on the afternoon of April 17th. So that's a good place to learn more about sharing about the shared catalog in particular. But with that, thank you so much for being with us this morning. And thank you so much, Kylie, for sharing this information. This is really timely, as I said, at the top of our program. Resource sharing is a huge theme going forward through this year, and looking at how do we, garner more support so that more libraries, more patrons are able to, have the benefit of sharing resources across the state. So with that, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Coley.